The planet Viridian Prime is a world that hates the very concept of breath. It is a sprawling, humid graveyard of giant mangroves and suffocating bogs where the atmosphere itself is a weapon. We call the rulers of this muck the Venom-Tide. They are massive, squat amphibians with skin like wet obsidian and throats that pulse with a glowing, neurotoxic sludge. They don't hunt with teeth, they hunt with the air. They exhale a thick, violet mist that turns the jungle into a hall of screaming mirrors. One breath of that gas and your nervous system misfires. You see your friends turn into demons. You see the ground turn into a pit of vipers. While you are lost in a nightmare of your own brain's making, the tide simply crawls out of the slime and swallows you whole. The first human explorers thought they could rely on standard oxygen tanks. But the tide's venom is corrosive. It ate through the seals. It rotted the filters. We found the initial outposts filled with men who had clawed their own eyes out to stop the hallucinations. The machines were useless because the sensors couldn't see through the dense, psychoactive fog. The jungle was a closed loop of death, and the tide was the only thing that knew the way out. But the Federation doesn't stop. We are the lung breakers. We are the 7th Chemical Reclamation Squad. We don't hide from the poison, we eat it. Our armor is a walking refinery, built around a suite of cybernetic lung filters and chemical distillers. When the tide exhales their death fog, we inhale it. Our systems strip the neurotoxins away, concentrate the volatile compounds, and feed them directly into our weapons. We turn their breath into our fire. We are the apex predators because we turn the environment's greatest threat into our primary ammunition. I am Sergeant Silas Vance. My filters are currently humming at 95% efficiency. The air in this swamp is 90% poison. To me, that just means I have plenty of fuel. We dropped into the Emerald Choke at dawn. The fog was so thick I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. The sound of the swamp was a constant, wet croaking, thousands of amphibians calling out to each other, signaling the arrival of fresh meat. My HUD was a map of thermal signatures, flickering orange against the deep purple of the toxic mist. Filters active. Start the distillation, I commanded. My voice was a mechanical rasp through the heavy respirator. Kale here. The mist is rich today. My tanks are already half full. I can smell the burn. Sarah here. They are moving in the canopy. I count 20, 30. They are surrounding us. The Venom-Tide didn't wait. They knew we were there. They rose from the black water like bubbles of oil, their multi-eyed faces looking at us with a cold, predatory hunger. They opened their massive maws and exhaled. A wave of concentrated violet gas rolled toward us, thick enough to obscure the trees. Hold your ground, I said. Let them feed the tanks. I felt the pull of the vacuum in my chest piece. The cybernetic filters screamed as they sucked in the violet gas. Inside my suit, the chemical processor roared to life. I felt the heat of the distillation against my back. The neurotoxin was being stripped down, its carbon chains shattered and rebuilt into a hyperreactive liquid. The orange gauge on my forearm climbed into the red. Tanks at maximum. Open the valves. The first amphibian leaped from a mangrove root, its claws extended. It was a 6-foot mass of muscle and slime. I didn't move. I squeezed the trigger on my heavy flamethrower. A jet of violet fire erupted from the nozzle. This wasn't standard napalm. This was the distilled essence of the tide's own venom. The fire was a beautiful, terrifying purple, burning at 3,000 degrees. It hit the leaping predator midair. The creature didn't even have time to shriek. The heat vaporized the moisture in its skin instantly, and the violet flame consumed the oil in its body. It hit the water as a charred, smoking husk. Burn them all, I roared. The swamp became a furnace. Sarah and Kale unleashed their own streams of fire, creating a wall of violet heat that pushed back the fog. The Venom-Tide was panicking. Their primary weapon, the gas, was being turned into a laser-focused inferno. Every time they tried to choke us, we just fired back harder. I waded through the knee-deep muck, my boots crushing the bones of ancient prey. A massive amphibian, the size of a bull, charged me from the shadows. It spat a glob of caustic slime that hissed against my shoulder plate. I didn't flinch. I grabbed the beast by its throat sac with my armored gauntlet and shoved the muzzle of my flamethrower into its mouth. Breathe this, I growled. I pulled the trigger. The internal explosion shattered the beast from the inside out, purple flames erupting from its eyes and gills. I tossed the carcass aside and turned to see a wave of the tide rushing from the trees. We moved in a synchronized triangle of fire. We weren't just killing them, we were clearing the planet. The violet flames cut through the black mangroves, the ancient wood catching fire and adding to the chaos. The swamp was no longer a place of shadow and mist, it was a bright, violent theater of human dominance. The Mist Mother is surfacing, Sarah yelled. From the center of the bog, a leviathan rose. The Mist Mother was 40 feet of translucent skin and pulsating poison glands. She was the source of the fog, her back covered in hundreds of venting pores that sprayed the neurotoxin like a geyser. She let out a low-frequency boom that shook the water, a sound of absolute rage. She exhaled a concentrated beam of violet gas directly at Kale. The pressure was enough to knock him off his feet, his suit disappearing into the cloud. Kale? Status? I'm good. My filters are redlining. I have so much fuel I think I'm going to explode. Kale's voice came through the comms, laughing with a manic edge. He emerged from the fog, his flamethrower glowing white-hot. I've got a full tank of her own blood, Silas. Let's give it back. We converged on the Leviathan. The Mist Mother realized her mistake. She tried to retreat into the deep water, but we wouldn't let her. We fired our harpoons, the titanium cables anchoring her to the burning trees. She thrashed, her massive tail shattering the burning wood, but the lung breakers were immovable. Total purge. Maximum output. I commanded. We unleashed everything. 3 streams of distilled violet fire converged on the Mist Mother. The heat was so intense the black water began to boil. The Leviathan's translucent skin began to bubble and peel. She tried one last time to exhale, but there was nothing left but fire. The neurotoxin inside her own body ignited. The explosion was a pillar of purple light that reached the clouds. The Mist Mother disintegrated, her massive form becoming a cloud of ash and embers. The shockwave cleared the fog for miles, revealing the first glimpse of the Viridian sky we had seen in weeks. The swamp went silent. The croaking had stopped. The only sound was the crackling of the burning trees and the heavy rhythmic thrumming of our suit filters. I looked around at the devastation. The bog was a blackened scar on the face of the planet. The water was covered in a layer of soot and dead amphibians. The neurotoxic fog was gone, burned away by its own lethality. Filters to idle, I said, my voice echoing in the quiet. Tanks empty. I pulled off my heavy respirator. The air was hot and smelled of burnt oil, but it was clear. I took a deep, shaky breath. No hallucinations. No demons. Just the reality of our victory. Kale and Sarah stood beside me, their armor scorched and dripping with black slime. We looked like monsters ourselves, but we were the ones standing. We were the ones who had walked into the mouth of the beast and used its own teeth to bite back. Humanity has proven the ultimate truth of the Apex Protocol. You can make the air a weapon. You can turn the jungle into a nightmare. You can breed monsters that hide in the mist. But we are the species that survives. We don't fear the poison, we harvest it. We don't fear the fire, we are the ones who bring it. The Mist Mother is ash. The tide has receded. Viridian Prime is quiet. The mission is over. We are going home. And for the first time in this hell, I can finally breathe.